Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Um, uh, please subscribe if you want to subscribe. If you want to like or dislike on the videos, please leave a comment. I do read the comments. I try to answer them to the best of my abilities. When I do get notified, if I do get notified, I try to at least respond to them within 5 days, at least for sure. There might be days where I just might not see those comments because the fact is I don't get notified on my phone or anywhere for that matter. Um, okay. In any case, the issue at hand, or the rant at hand at this point, is uh, it doesn't matter being a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, I try to avoid politics as much as possible, but when it comes to government spending and some of the stuff that we spend on, that kind of like irks me a little bit. Specifically, how much we spend on specifically. I mean, there's always the case for as we'd like to call Paul Rand or Rand Paul, sorry, Rand Paul's little bit of Festivus report. Now, for those of you who are Gen Xers and probably early millennials will know what Festivus is, of course. If you don't, you can look it up. Just type in Festivus for the rest of us. It's to the point of like basically what it usually comes down to is the Festivus report is essentially like some of the misappropriations of government spending, basically. Uh, so this year, some of the stuff. Now, I haven't looked entirely or done my proper fact checking, and I'll say straight up that I don't do a lot of fact checking when it comes to things like this. But I do read reports. I will read whatever it is. But there was a case where like Paul Rand has basically was saying earlier today or yesterday, basically some of the stuff that was spent, the amount of money that was spent. Now, there was not details exactly what was used, but it's interesting. I mean, one of them is basically he said that there was $500,000 basically training mice to binge drink alcohol. Okay. In that situation, $500,000 training mice to binge drink alcohol. I don't know what the exact reason was. It could be for scientific purposes. I'm not sure what it is, but the thing is, I've seen since the late 80s, I know there have been studies about alcohol with mice. So I don't know what's the purpose of doing this for this aspect of binge drinking, binge drinking alcohol. Is it a certain type of alcohol, or is it more to apply them with binge drinking and then apply um, some sort of a catalyst to basically remove the inebriation as a result? If that is the case, okay, it might will help out in that situation. Another aspect is basically close to $700,000 studying how male parrots attract female parrots and mate with them, basically. Or if to the point, yeah, essentially how male parrots attract female parrots. Now, scientifically speaking, I guess that kind of makes sense in a way. So like you want to see what causes that because between species, you want to know what it is, basically what attracts the other species to that species, and there's a possibility that we could have, we probably evolved from it in some aspect. It's just a matter of like determining how that works. I mean, for science purposes, that makes sense, but in reality, I mean, $700,000 for that, I mean, that's a little excessive, I would say, to be quite honest. It's the same thing with like I think $2.3 million. Now I don't know if this is true or not, but $2.3 million to do a 6 month study of injecting old you know, yeah, 6 month old beagle puppies with cocaine. Um, I don't know what it was. If it, I got to look, like I said, I got to look up look up at some of this studies to see what they were doing. But $2.3 million just to inject cocaine into like 6 month old beagle puppies. What? Why would you do that? Isn't that like a little bit of cruelty to animals? We know what cocaine does to people and to animals as well too directly. Is it a possibility that there are some benefits that 6 month old beagle puppies have that reject the effect of cocaine or have some medicinal purposes or something like that? I don't know. But I mean, $2.3 billion. Come on. I mean, that's a little a little odd. Now, the one thing though that irked me a little bit, if this is entirely true, and if it's just a study, just for study, to see if to debunk or validate the movie theory, basically, a movie plot, basically, of Thanos with a metal glove, can it actually create a snap? Can you snap a metal glove, basically? And it was about $118,000. All right, now that, if this is related to movies, to debunk it or to validate it, there's no real reason. I mean, for a freaking snap, I mean, come on, that makes no sense. Now, if we're talking about like, hey, is it possible that a metal glove can harness powers and exert energy? Okay, that's a different story. But come on, seriously, if it's $118,000, I mean, might as well just create a grant for the government. It's like, hey, give me another $100,000 just to see, can I, as an individual, a U.S. citizen, take that money, invest it properly, and come back with 1,000% return. That might be an interesting study. And hey, look, if I get 1,000% return, some of that money will go back to the government anyways in taxes from short-term capital gains as a result, and they'll get more interest as a result of it. So why not try that? I wouldn't mind doing that. But like I said, it's one of those things where I don't know if this is true, but some of the stuff, but like some cases there might be true case. In some cases, there might be aspects of government spending where you need it. But I like I said, I haven't researched all the stuff that I've talked about, like with the mice and alcohol. I mean, honestly, if it was $500,000 for mice, we've already done it. I mean, I don't know what else is there to do with this. I mean, if there's some aspects of to reduce some aspects of alcohol, okay, fine, but I don't know what that's going to do. And the same thing again with as far as like the cocaine and beagles or puppy beagles, basically. 2.3 million. Come on, I mean, I don't know what's the whole purpose of it is, unless there's some kind of active agent that they have in themselves that counteracts it. Maybe. Same thing with the parrot romance. I don't know if it's worth $700,000. I mean, honestly, but maybe it could have been 100,000 for all we know. And then, of course, there's the case $200,000 on a radio campaign telling drivers to stop at railroad crossings. Honestly, no one's gonna listen to those campaigns anyways. That is a waste. I'd say that's a true waste. I mean, you could. It's basically. There was a movie at one time as well too. What was it called? Dave. Which was played by Kevin Kline, and there was an interesting aspect when they were budgeting, doing some certain aspects of budgeting, and there was a case where they were spending $1.4 million on an advertisement to basically reassure the buyer of an American car that what you bought was correct, what you bought was good, just for reassurance. And reality is why would you have to send an ad for American-made goods? It's the same thing with with the railroad crossing. I mean, that's common sense. I mean, if people don't stop, I mean, it's might as well if that's the case, you might as well spend $100,000 campaigns hey, remember, don't drink poison. In that situation, I mean, if it's a PSA towards children, okay, but if it's for adults, I mean, if that's the case, then you know what, this is a country of stupid people. Then at that point, if we have to spend $100,000 or $200,000 to tell for a radio campaign to tell drivers to stop at a railroad crossing, well, that's when the thing comes down, basically. Now, if it's up and there's no railroad crossing, that's a different story. I mean, there is a law, of course, for bus drivers; they have to stop no matter what at a thing. If this is a case where, if the railroad crossing things go down, I mean, the crossing thing basically goes down, and people still go. That's on them. That's their stupid fault. Then that's honestly their own fault at that point. I mean, if you're in a rush, people always in a rush, and I understand that. But at the same time, is unless it's a dire emergency, that's your own. And you get hit by a train, that's your own fault. What are you gonna do? You can't blame the government for that. What's the government gonna do? I mean, they've done everything they can with cars at this point. So what else can you do at this point? I mean, hell, honestly, the texting and phone calls and requiring them to have a Bluetooth headset. I mean, that's no different from basically holding the phone in your hand and basically dialing. You're still looking at the phone anyways. To be hands-free versus non-hands-free, you're still looking at the phone when you're dialing at that point. It's only when you're talking on the phone at that point. I don't think that's a big issue. But I'll get into that much more later anyways, into another video. Actually, I'll make sure to create that video for that, to discuss that a little bit, the points about the pros and cons between this law about hands-free phones and not, basically. But in any case, outside of that, That's pretty much it. I mean, this is a case where it's government spending. I mean, in the economy we're at right now, I mean, there's some cases where yeah, you can spend for certain things for scientific purposes, makes sense. But like for but if it's excessive, that's a different story, and that's what comes down to. It's like, all right, people are manipulating the system at that point. I might as well try to. If that's the case, I might as well manipulate the system, as I said, and basically it's like, hey, look, give me $100,000, and let me see if I can come back with $1,000, 1,000% return. How well I can do with that as an average American citizen. See what happens there. I'd be surprised if actually I can do that. But anyways, with that, let me know your let me know your thoughts on this, your feedback and whatnot. I mean, I could go into much more into this, but like I said, I didn't do any fact checking on this, and I probably should. If I did, I probably would go into it for an hour or so. And I know, like, the situation, I try to keep my my video segments less than 15 minutes. I try to keep it between 5 to 10 minutes, but no more than 15 minutes, unless it's a subject that is dear to my heart, and I'll go off on at that point. With that, usually most of my videos, as I usually end it out, is unfiltered, unedited, and unrehearsed. Until next time.